In a modern war, the first shot may never be heard. No missile launch. No tanks crossing borders. No dramatic announcement on live television. No air raid sirens. No burning skyline broadcast across the world. Just a signature in Washington, a regulatory notice quietly published online. A meeting behind closed doors, a policy shift hidden behind technical language, and factories on the other side of the planet begin to slow down. Production schedules are rewritten, investment plans are delayed. Engineers are forced to redesign systems around missing components. For generations, the world believed power meant oil fields, aircraft carriers, steel mills, nuclear arsenals, and armies large enough to occupy continents. In the 20th century, that assumption often held true. But in the 21st century, power increasingly arrives in silence. It hides inside every smartphone, every satellite in orbit, every banking server, every hospital scanner, every autonomous drone, every missile guidance system, every electric vehicle, and every artificial intelligence model. That power has a name: the semiconductor. But here is the real mystery. Why did the United States suddenly decide to weaponize chips against China? Can export controls and supply chain pressure actually slow the rise of the world's second-largest economy? Is Taiwan the most strategically important island on Earth because of one company? And if America controls the key choke points today, how long can that dominance truly last? By the end of this dossier, those questions will be answered, because the most important contest on Earth is not being fought on a battlefield. It is being fought inside sterile clean rooms, advanced laboratories, and machines capable of carving invisible circuits onto silicon wafers with atomic precision. The question is no longer whether the United States and China are competing. The question is, who will control the brain of civilization? To understand how the world reached this moment, we need to go back several decades. In the 1980s, American industry still represented overwhelming technological strength. US firms led in computing, aerospace, software, finance, telecommunications, and chip design. Silicon Valley was becoming synonymous with innovation. American universities attracted global talent. The dollar anchored global finance. But globalization was accelerating. Companies searched for lower labor costs, larger production networks, fewer regulations, and access to emerging consumer markets. During the 1990s and 2000s, industrial production moved toward Asia. China became the central destination. It offered labor scale, infrastructure expansion, political stability, state coordination, export incentives, and a willingness to become the workshop of the world. Factories multiplied, ports expanded, highways appeared where farmland once stood. Entire cities transformed in a single generation. Supply chains that once crossed American states now crossed oceans. In return, the West gained cheaper goods, higher corporate margins, lower inflation, and stronger consumer purchasing power. Consumers benefited, investors benefited, executives benefited. Many policymakers in Washington believed this arrangement would eventually reshape China politically. The theory was simple: integrate Beijing into the global economy, expose it to markets, encourage growth, and over time political liberalization would follow. Economic openness would supposedly create political openness. Instead, China used the opening to do something else entirely. It absorbed manufacturing knowledge, trained millions of engineers, built supply chain depth, copied where useful, innovated where necessary, and moved steadily up the value ladder. What began with textiles and toys expanded into electronics, telecom hardware, batteries, shipbuilding, solar panels, industrial machinery, consumer devices, and increasingly sophisticated technology sectors. The result was one of the fastest industrial transformations in modern history. Hundreds of millions were lifted from poverty. China became central to global trade. It accumulated reserves, expanded influence, and developed the capacity to produce at a scale few nations could match. Yet even at the height of that rise, one critical weakness remained. China manufactured enormous portions of the body of the global economy, but not all of its brain. The most advanced semiconductor ecosystem remained concentrated elsewhere, and that distinction would become one of the defining geopolitical facts of our era. Chips are often described as components. That understates their role completely. Semiconductors are the control layer of modern civilization. They regulate energy flows inside vehicles. They process medical imaging in hospitals. They guide aircraft navigation. They enable secure communications. They run industrial robots. They support missile tracking systems. They train artificial intelligence models. They connect cloud computing networks. They optimize logistics chains. They manage financial transactions in milliseconds. Remove advanced chips from a modern economy, and productivity, security, and innovation begin to degrade. Not immediately, not dramatically, but steadily. Repairs become harder. Upgrades slow down. Competitors move faster. Entire industries lose momentum. Not all chips are equal. Mature chips, used in appliances, automotive systems, and industrial devices, remain essential and widely produced. But leading-edge chips deliver greater performance, lower power consumption, and superior efficiency. Those advantages compound across sectors. Faster processors improve military simulations. Better GPUs accelerate AI systems. More efficient chips strengthen data centers. Smaller nodes enable advanced mobile devices. Lower latency supports real-time systems. In the strategic sense, mastering top-tier semiconductors means accelerating progress across countless industries at once. Losing access means surrendering speed. That is why this contest is not simply commercial. It is systemic. Countries that lead in semiconductor technology often gain leverage far beyond the chip sector itself. Countries dependent on foreign suppliers can discover that vulnerability at the worst possible moment. The semiconductor supply chain is one of the most sophisticated cooperative systems ever built. Design leadership remains heavily concentrated in the United States. Critical manufacturing equipment comes from a narrow group of companies in Europe and Japan. Advanced fabrication capacity is concentrated in Taiwan and South Korea. Specialty chemicals and materials come from a small number of trusted suppliers. Precision optics, deposition systems, etching tools, inspection machines, packaging technologies, and software all come from different nodes across allied economies. No single country controls every stage. That structure produced extraordinary efficiency over the past 3 decades. But it also created extraordinary fragility. When only a few firms dominate essential links, each link becomes strategically significant. A software license can matter as much as a shipping lane. A machine tool can matter as much as a military base. A materials supplier can matter as much as a commodity exporter. Washington gradually recognized this reality. As relations with Beijing worsened, American strategy began to shift from engagement to selective containment. Trade tensions, intellectual property disputes, national security concerns, military competition, cyber espionage fears, and technological rivalry all fed the transition. Then came the turning point. In 2022, the United States dramatically expanded export controls targeting advanced semiconductor flows to China. These measures aim to restrict access to certain high-performance chips, chip-making tools, and technical support connected to frontier manufacturing capabilities. The official rationale focused on national security and military use concerns. But the strategic meaning was broader. America had decided that technology leadership would no longer be treated as a neutral byproduct of globalization. It would be defended as a core pillar of state power. That message echoed globally. Allies were consulted, firms reassessed risk, investors recalculated assumptions, competitors accelerated contingency plans. What once looked like a specialized industry dispute now resembled a new model of great power competition. One of the least understood dimensions of this shift involved human capital. Frontier industries do not run on machinery alone. They run on tacit knowledge, process discipline, yield optimization, troubleshooting experience, and elite engineering talent built over decades. Restricting certain forms of technical assistance or cooperation can slow progress even when equipment remains available. In highly complex sectors, expertise is not instantly replaceable. A single team with years of accumulated experience can determine whether a fabrication line performs efficiently or fails expensively. A small delay in yield improvement can cost billions. A single missing specialist can slow an entire production ramp. This did not switch off Chinese semiconductor ambitions. Claims of instant collapse were exaggerated, but it did raise costs, lengthen timelines, complicate procurement, and increase uncertainty around the most advanced nodes. In industries where timing matters enormously, delays themselves become strategic outcomes. At the same time, Washington moved to strengthen domestic resilience. The CHIPS Act signaled a historic return of industrial policy in the United States. Subsidies, tax incentives, workforce development, research funding, and support for new fabrication plants became part of a national effort to restore capacity. The logic was clear. It is not enough to constrain rivals if your own supply chains remain exposed. Companies such as Intel sought to rebuild manufacturing leadership. Other firms expanded investment across design, packaging, memory, and foundry partnerships. States competed for plants. Universities expanded engineering pipelines. Local governments marketed industrial corridors. Semiconductor policy, once niche and technical, became front-page national strategy. At the center of the geopolitical map stands Taiwan. Through TSMC, the island became home to the most advanced fabrication capacity in the world. That success created prosperity, but also risk. For the United States, preserving stability in the Taiwan Strait became economically vital. For China, dependence on an island politically separate and strategically aligned with the West represented an unacceptable vulnerability. For global markets, any disruption there could trigger immediate shortages, inflationary shocks, and supply crises across industries from automobiles to defense. This is why semiconductors transformed Taiwan from a regional issue into a central node of global strategy. Yet narratives of inevitable Chinese decline ignore important realities. Beijing did not remain passive. China responded with massive state-backed investment, research incentives, equipment development programs, talent recruitment campaigns, and long-term efforts to expand domestic capacity. Chinese firms advanced in mature node manufacturing, memory efforts, telecommunications hardware, electric vehicles, batteries, renewable infrastructure, drones, and selected AI applications. Universities increased engineering output, provincial governments funded industrial parks, state capital flowed into strategic sectors. China may still face barriers at the most advanced frontier, but scale matters. Market size matters. Persistence matters. Nations with deep internal demand can sustain industries through long development cycles. Nations with centralized policy tools can direct resources faster than fragmented competitors. These advantages do not guarantee success, but dismissing them would be strategically careless. The next decisive arena is artificial intelligence. Advanced AI systems require enormous compute power, specialized accelerators, vast datasets, reliable electricity, and elite talent. US. Restrictions on top-tier GPUs aim to slow China's progress in training cutting-edge models. But AI capability is broader than one benchmark or one chip generation. Efficient software, model compression, domain specialization, custom hardware, and alternative architectures can all narrow gaps over time. In other words, export controls may delay leadership races in some categories without permanently ending competition. Meanwhile, America retains major strengths. The United States leads in top research universities, venture capital depth, cloud infrastructure, frontier labs, software ecosystems, entrepreneurial dynamism, and global financial influence. It also benefits from alliance networks spanning Europe and Asia. When coordinated effectively, those networks amplify American leverage far beyond domestic borders. But leverage has limits. Overuse of restrictions can incentivize self-sufficiency abroad. Pressure can unify rivals. Markets can fragment. Companies can lose revenue needed for future research. Policymakers therefore face a difficult balance: defend national security without accelerating the emergence of parallel ecosystems. That possibility, the split of the global tech system, is one of the greatest long-term risks. Imagine two partially separate worlds. One centered on American standards, software and supply chains. Another centered on Chinese platforms, financing and industrial networks. Different chips, different operating systems, different telecom layers, different cloud rules, different payment rails, different security assumptions. Such a divide would likely increase costs, reduce efficiency, and slow some forms of innovation. Redundancy can improve resilience. But duplication also consumes capital. Scientific cooperation could shrink. Trust could decline. Businesses would face more compliance burdens. Smaller countries would feel pressure to choose sides. So, has the United States suffocated China? Not yet. What Washington has done is convert technology into an explicit instrument of national power. It has shown that control over chokepoints, design tools, advanced equipment, top-tier chips, alliance coordination, and financial influence can shape the strategic environment without firing a shot. China, in turn, has treated self-reliance not as a slogan, but as a strategic necessity. It understands that dependence in critical technologies creates vulnerability. Whether Beijing can close key gaps remains uncertain, but its commitment to trying is no longer in doubt. The 21st century may therefore be decided less by battlefield victories and more by industrial endurance. Who can build faster? Who can scale production reliably? Who can train more engineers? Who can secure energy? Who can fund research through downturns? Who can absorb shocks and keep learning? Who can innovate under pressure? Everyday life already reflects this struggle. When you unlock a phone, use GPS, stream media, receive medical diagnostics, or move money digitally, you interact with systems shaped by semiconductor competition. The technology war is not a future scenario, it is a present condition. The coming decades may be remembered not for armies that marched across borders, but for factories that stayed online, laboratories that innovated faster, and nations that transformed knowledge into durable power. The chip is tiny, nearly invisible, yet an increasing share of humanity's future rests inside it. And that is the real lesson of this era. Power no longer depends only on territory or population. It depends on who can organize talent, capital, energy, materials, and ideas into machines small enough to disappear from sight, yet powerful enough to shape the world. Dossier Closed.